Hello, lovelies. Hello, family. This is Kimberly Purpoz, and welcome to my channel. Today, I want to do another video. This is going to be part number 2 of why Aboriginal people just can't get over it. That's what I want to do my video on. I did a video, part number 1, back in December 2028. If you all want to listen to the first video, you may want to go back and pull that video up. It's on my video channel, but on YouTube. But this time I want to do part number 2 because I just touched on this article. It's a lengthy article. This is a study on understanding and addressing the intergenerational trauma, and this explains why Aboriginal people just can't get over it. I wanted to talk about this because with the popular topic of the ADOS, American descendants of slaves, going on in discussion of how reparation, whether or not the indigenous people of the Americas, the AKA African Americans, should be getting reparation or not, is under debate politically for the election. I thought it would be a good idea to talk about why we can't get over it. And a lot of times, a lot of people are asking this question. I hear it from a lot of the Caucasians who discuss this particular topic, and also the immigrants here in the Americas asking why y'all just can't get over it, why you can't just get over slavery, and why can't the indigenous people just get over it, which we are actually the natives here in the Americas. And I think part of one of the biggest problems is our history has been erased. You can see it going on right now with the churches being burned down. I showed you all a study at Harvard where they're actually trying to rewrite the history of what took place during Jim Crow. Jim Crow, to me, as far as I'm concerned, with a lot of stuff that went on in the past, is still going on today. And Jim Crow has not really ended. It's still going on to this very day with the lynchings, which is being covered up with suicides. I did a video on that. Y'all might want to check that out. Also, with the mass incarcerations, they were doing that during Jim Crow, and they're still doing it right now. Nothing has really changed. It's just a different method. Stolen lands, I talk about that. I did a video about gentrification, how it's a new tactic of how the majority is pretty much in this country, which is our Caucasians, the Greys, are how they are doing it, using different tactics to steal lands from the indigenous people without paying for it. And it's still going on. It's a different method. But this particular article is talking about the intergenerational trauma that takes place. And it's true, it does take place. For us, this trauma has been going on for centuries. And it's not something that has just came overnight. It has grown and festered for centuries, and it has to be cured. And the only way we can heal from it is acknowledging the fact that all these atrocities has actually happened to us in this country. And not necessarily trying to get people to understand it, but for us to be aware of it. A lot of us suffer from Stockholm Syndrome, and a lot of it is because we haven't actually taken a look and analyzed and took the time to actually understand our feelings. And I think now we are actually starting to do that. And I think it's a great thing that we're actually taking a look at what our history, what actually took place, and actually tapping more into our ancestry and having a better understanding of what took place. And I'm going to bring out here, when I look at these pictures here, we're starting to put up pictures of what happened to our ancestors. These are actual pictures of what we actually look like. You know, I showed this picture here sometime. These are one of the first books here that shows who we are as Indigenous people. These are us. And oftentimes this is overlooked and we don't see that. And I think part of the healing process is actually acknowledging how we feel, understanding who we are, and moving forward. And I think the ADOS movement is definitely key as to how it's definitely key to making things right and making it correct. But going back to the topic about why we can't just get over it. Like I said, these are wounds that has not been healed, and just simply brushing it under the rug is not a form of healing. Just brushing it under the rug because one particular group feel uncomfortable, those days have come to an end. There's no such thing as being comfortable for Caucasians, for grays. It's just something that needs to be looked upon and actually changed. But this article here goes over what took place and explains into detail. Like the first 4 paragraphs I've already went over. We're going to go over the next paragraphs and discuss it. It says here, the Indian residential schools is one of the better known examples of intergenerational colonization that impacts still reverberate today. The schools were designed primarily to re-educate Aboriginal children, which are also the African Americans, to conform to the colonizers' ways. Children were taken from their family and forced to live in unfamiliar, hostile environments where beating and other forms of ill treatments were the norm. All the heights of the practice, more than 100 residential schools were in operations across the country, attended by some 100,000 Aboriginal children. Over 25% of these schools were located in British Columbia. The last residential school closed only in 1996. Whoa. And to me, I feel like these schools are nothing more than the public school systems of today. It's still the same thing. A lot of the indoctrination is being taught in the school system. I talked about it in another video. I mentioned how in my son's school, they're teaching colonization still. And they glorify it, they put on a pedestal. It's like they want to constantly teach our kids colonization, what happened to our ancestors. And to me, I believe it's a form of abuse, and it's written in a way to glorify gray Caucasians and to belittle the indigenous people, which is us. And it's also slanted in a way to make them look like they're heroes when in actuality they were never heroes. What they did was very evil and very demonic, and it needs to be called out like it actually occurred. But everything has been graywashed to the point where the truth has been covered up and been hidden, to the point where it's not being taught in schools. And a lot of times they're forcing the kids to learn this because it's in these state exams, and some states, I know here in Georgia, they require your kids to learn this stuff, this trash, and they expect you to take it in the state exams in order to move on to the next grade. You gotta answer those tests, those questions, which has been completely graywashed and slanted to one side. It's a brainwashing mechanism that's oftentimes used psychologically to damage a person, psychologically and mentally, to thinking that one group of people is more superior and supreme than others, when in actuality that is not the case. It does not have no scientific basis to justify this. But let's go on to the next paragraph. It says, as residential schools begin to close, the doors, provisional and territorial systems of children welfare emerged. The 60 schools continued the residential school traditions, taking Aboriginal children from their families, but instead of placing them in foster homes, place them in foster homes on adoption lists. And that's exactly what's happening now. A lot of our kids are being taken and thrown into foster care. We're for the foster care system, or I should see it. They find any little thing they can find on parents to justify taking their kids. And also, they it's already been proven that the school system has been used as a pipeline for the prison system, to set them up for failure. A lot of them are being taught by the Caucasians. It's more Caucasian teachers in the classroom. There are people of color, especially the African Americans. I've read an article about how some of the teachers are having a hard time passing the test. They add on more and more requirements, which is a way of trying to keep certain groups of people from being able to teach children. And it's another tactic, a way of keeping indigenous people from being able to teach in the classroom, and trying to keep a certain group, which are the Caucasians, as being the main ones teaching these classes, especially towards our children. And so, and also, it also teaches the teachers to teach only certain things in the classroom, and which is filled with these lies, which I personally feel like colonization should not be taught in the classroom, especially in the way it's been taught. It's been taught as a way of indoctrination and keeping and teaching eugenics. It's not, and that's it. It's not something that is been based scientifically. It's based on speculation, and it's based on a certain group's opinion. But let's continue. It says the stark overrepresentation of Aboriginal children and family in the welfare system continues to this day. And it is. It's still going on. You see it especially among the Aboriginals, the AKA African Americans, who they call the blacks, which I don't use anymore. I try to, which I feel like is another misnomer that they use to use as a covering mechanism of hiding who the original people are in this country. And it says in 2015, more than 50% of youth in care in British Columbia were Aboriginal. There are similar overrepresentation of Aboriginal people reflected in statistics concerning the corrections systems, the education systems, the employment and health and poverty and homelessness rate. All of this has been studied and documented. You all, if y'all want to check it out, right here they have the references at the end of this article that so further supports this information, that there is that there's too many indigenous people in these systems. And when you include, and when you look at it, all these systems work together, create the grand scheme of of great supremacy, pretty much. The educational system, the employment, the way that employment, which is supposed to have affirmative action, but everybody else benefit from it, to the point where the original people, the natives here, don't get a chance to reap the benefit, the health benefits. I see a lot of immigrants and everybody else getting health care, and the original people cannot even get the health care, can't even get Medicaid, because most of it's going to the immigrants and everybody else. And we pay into these, and for centuries, they got free labor out of us, and they still getting money out of us, out of taxes and where we work. And a lot of us can't even get health care because it's being saturated by everyone else but us. Then the poverty, the homelessness, you see all of it, and the prison system, everything is just, and it's all ingrained and put together to create this massive one-sided gray supremacist system that prevents the original people from excelling or achieving or reaching any goals in here. And it makes it very difficult to survive in this country, because you see these the injustice. It's even in the prison system. You see it everywhere. And that's why a lot of this stuff is still going on to this very day, because nothing has changed. And if anything, it's another form of what took place in the past. And it says here, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada, Beverly McLaughlin, labeled Canada's action as cultural genocide against Aboriginal people. The impact of such policies echoes across the generations. Aboriginal children in residential schools were forbidden to speak their language. Yeah, and that's true. It says here, practicing a culture or engage in spirituality. Many subjects to Huronics abuse and experimentations, such as the Tuskegee experiment. That's a perfect example of some of these experimentations that took place and the injustice that took place in the United States. And it says here, after the release of the TRC final report, Justice Murray Sinclair, the TRC chair, revealed that no fewer than 6,000 Aboriginal children had died in residential schools and conveyed that today the other institutions are not included in the TRC. The actual numbers of death could be as high as 10,000. And I'm not sure if they're talking about the natives here in this article. It sounds like they might be, but the Native Americans. But we are also indigenous here, and it's also impacting us here in the United States. But right here, they're talking about Canada. But let's draw down. And it says, when those kids who have survived the residential schools return to their communities, the impact of the experiences attached to family dynamics was profound. And just like in the public school systems, it's profound against the indigenous people here, the AKA African Americans, the prison pipeline. It has a devastating effect, and having us being abused with the indoctrination tactics such as forcing kids to learn about the one-sidedness of colonization can be quite excessive as well. I also want to mention too, when I was in school, which was years ago, giving away my age, but we were forced to learn about I was forced to watch Gone with the Wind and Roots and stuff, these terrible films that has a one-sided view as what took place, and also fictional fantasy narrative that comes from a Caucasian's point of view, that does not include what the indigenous people's perception of what actually took place. It's just a one-sided view of what took place, and it's a racist and biased point of view. Seeing those films were very psychologically damaging, and I think it affects the children too. When you have that being imposed, these false narratives being imposed in the school systems on a constant basis, it can be psychologically damaging and spiritually damaging to the child, to the point where it causes them to lose self-esteem and self-worth in their mindset. And it's very traumatic. And these are some of the same things that the indigenous Aborigines, the African Americans, experiences as well. And it says here, through these schools. And that's why some parents want to teach their kids at home, because they feel like they can learn more and learn more about their culture and history from home, as opposed to focusing on the eugenics aspects of things and everything being slanted based on Caucasians. And it says here, as they were missed out in learning their cultural ways, like I said, cultural ways, which we are, because ours been erased and brainwashed, and ways of coping and practicing good health and wellness and parenting. Yeah, the natural way of connecting to the earth. Many survivors were later targeted by child welfare system from conditions of poverty and neglect, which is going on to the African Americans, aka African Americans, the indigenous people here as well, and was direct result of experiences of these institutions. A great many children with unsuccessful generations were taken from their family and home and placed in child welfare. Many abuses and racist discourse was underpinned the Indian residential school system, and not just that, the Aboriginal, the indigenous people here, the Negroes. We also dealt with that as well, which is going on with us as well. and continue the child welfare system. So this is a systemic way of doing this, you guys. It's not something that's, we're just doing it to ourselves. It's actually being imposed to us as well. I think I read the 4 paragraphs. I was trying to get, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I did the 4 paragraphs. Now that's why I'm going to stop here. And I just wanted to touch on that. The school system is it's a great it's a tactic that they're often using to get to our children, and they're learning that. I guess they've done so much research on us for centuries that they know that if you get to the kids, you get to the adults. You get to them before they become adults. You brainwash them as children to believe all these false narratives to the point where it's hard. It's ingrained into them psychologically and spiritually. But I would love to see what you all think. I think this ties in with the ADOS movement and how why we can't get over it, because this is getting tongue tied. It's a systemic. Sorry about that. It's a systemic tactic that is taking place in every level, pretty much, in almost every level, and from the education system, from the healthcare system, from the prison system, from the judicial system, the banking system, the economy, everything, the job market, everything is a system that's been interwoven to create this blockage to prevent us from succeeding in society. And some of us do make it. I have to admit, even with the odds against us, some of us, there's a few of us, there's quite a few that still make it. But as a collective, as a whole, it is still something that needs to be torn down. This system, great supremacy, needs to be torn down. And I believe that the ADOS movement is a step in the right direction. I still believe that they should make it that we were actual prisoner of wars, because in actuality, they captured the indigenous people here. There's no way they brought over 18 million people on ships, because they didn't have the technology. And no way that they can prove it. They can't even produce the ships all the ships that show that we were here, or even the paperwork. The reason why they can't is because we were already over here. And that's a fact. But please like this video, thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Until next time, family, love and peace. Bye-bye.